At exactly 2:28 a.m., something changed forever inside a quiet home in Pima County. Nancy Guthrie, an 84-year-old woman known for her calm life and warm personality, suddenly vanished from her own bedroom. There were no witnesses, no screams heard by neighbors, just silence. But the scene inside her home told a disturbing story. Investigators discovered blood inside the bedroom, a security camera ripped from the wall, and the most chilling detail of all, Nancy's pacemaker signal suddenly stopped transmitting at 2:28 a.m. It was as if someone had erased her presence from the world in a single moment. When the news broke, the community immediately feared the worst, a kidnapping or a violent attack. Search teams combed through the surrounding desert, helicopters scanned the darkness, volunteers joined the effort, hoping to find any clue that could bring Nancy home. But as the hours turned into days, the situation became even more troubling. No suspects, no arrests, and no clear explanation. For the people of Pima County, the question slowly began to change. It was no longer just, who took Nancy Guthrie? The deeper question became something far more unsettling. Who failed her?
When a case involves a suspected kidnapping, federal agencies usually step in quickly. The FBI specializes in these situations, bringing advanced forensic tools, national databases, and decades of investigative experience. Many experts believed the FBI should have taken a leading role immediately. But something unusual happened. Instead of transferring control, the Pima County Sheriff's Office kept the investigation local. Sheriff Chris Nanos insisted that his department had capable detectives and that cooperation with federal agents would continue under local leadership. However, critics began raising concerns. The sheriff had won his position by an extremely narrow election margin, just 481 votes. To some observers, this detail suddenly became important. Was the investigation being handled carefully? Or was it becoming a matter of political control and personal authority? Former law enforcement officials publicly stated that large investigations benefit from collaboration. Agencies working together can share resources, intelligence, and manpower. But according to several insiders, the case remained tightly controlled within a small circle of decision-makers. As days passed with little progress, frustration began spreading throughout the community. People wanted answers, and they wanted them fast. As investigators continued working the case, several earlier decisions inside the sheriff's department began attracting attention. Just months before Nancy Guthrie disappeared, 3 experienced homicide detectives had been reassigned during an internal restructuring. These detectives were known for solving some of the county's toughest cases. But when Nancy vanished, they were no longer working in their previous roles. Another surprising change involved the department's tactical air unit. A highly trained pilot, skilled in nighttime search operations and thermal imaging technology, had been transferred out of the department shortly before the disappearance. That meant when Nancy went missing in the cold desert darkness, the county lacked one of its most experienced aerial search specialists. It took 3 hours before a fully equipped aircraft was deployed. In kidnapping investigations, every minute matters. Heat signatures fade, footprints disappear, evidence can vanish. These delays, critics argued, may have cost investigators crucial opportunities. Each decision might have had a reasonable explanation on its own, but when people looked at the entire sequence together, it began to form a troubling pattern. And the deeper journalists and investigators looked, the more complicated the story became. As the investigation continued, the handling of critical evidence became another source of debate. Instead of sending biological samples directly to a federal forensic laboratory, officials chose to send them to a private, out-of-state lab. Sheriff Nanos defended the decision, saying it would keep all evidence processing in one place and streamline the investigation. But critics argued that federal labs have faster access to national DNA databases and advanced profiling tools. Meanwhile, the sheriff's office continued giving frequent updates to the public. In many high-profile investigations, authorities limit the details they reveal. Information can be a powerful tool when trying to catch suspects. Yet in this case, certain investigative details were openly discussed during press briefings. At the same time, Nancy Guthrie's family was waiting for progress. Eventually, the family offered a financial reward for information that might lead to answers. Within just 24 hours of the announcement, tip lines reportedly received a surge of calls. That raised another difficult question. If a reward could generate so many leads, why wasn't it offered sooner? For many residents, the investigation was beginning to feel less like a search for truth and more like a puzzle filled with unanswered questions.
As weeks passed, Nancy Guthrie's death became more than a tragic crime story. It became a test of trust between the public and the institutions meant to protect them. Reports began circulating about internal disagreements within the sheriff's department. Some insiders claimed investigators were concerned about communication problems and investigative decisions. Journalists also started examining the case more closely. Local radio shows questioned the timeline. Online communities analyzed press conferences. Independent reporters searched for inconsistencies in official statements. One particularly troubling allegation suggested that certain digital evidence logs showed access times that did not match official reports. If true, it could raise serious concerns about the chain of custody for critical evidence. Sheriff Nanos dismissed these claims as speculation and online sensationalism, but the controversy continued growing. County officials began discussing the possibility of independent reviews and external oversight, because by this point, the case had evolved into something larger. It was no longer just about how Nancy Guthrie died. It was about who controls the truth surrounding her death. And until those answers arrive, one haunting question remains in Pima County. Not only what happened that night, but who benefits from the silence that followed.